play. And for inspiration, how about trying last year's loss at home to the Sherman Bearcats on the road and with built-in motivation? Sounds like an interesting plot for the Scots in Week 2. The Frank Bevers Show, a weekly look at the activities and game highlights of the Highland Park Scots, with head coach Frank Bevers and Eddie Clinton. Brought to you by Avio Adlita Realtors, Lincoln Property, Sparkman Hillcrest, Sharp Hardware, J.P. Summers Incorporated Construction and Home Building, Murray Savings. Murray Savings was the first in Dallas to introduce an interest-earning checking account. Make Murray Savings part of your financial game plan.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Frank Bevers Show, along with Coach Bevers. I'm Eddie Clinton. Well, not a bad Friday night. Nice road trip, good crowd. You guys came out with win number 2.
Well, we picked up our enthusiasm a little bit in preparation for district play. We'll probably ease back one more time before we go into district play. We were real pleased because we think our kids picked up a little bit what you've got to do if you're going to have a good football team.
Let's talk a little bit about the Sherman ball game in a little depth there. I thought King looked pretty good. We were worried about your offensive line after the first week, but they looked pretty good last night.
I think they're going to be all right. We made errors, procedure penalty type things that hopefully we can correct, and we'll work real hard this week on doing that. Definitely there was much improvement from the previous ball game.
You pleased with King? Another good ball game, I thought.
Oh, mercy, yes. King is doing a very good job. He's doing a good job recognizing defenses. We think he's going to be a complete quarterback before it's all over with.
Boy, your passing game really came along. Adam Cox had a big night.
Adam has a lot of talent. He's got good quickness. He's got good speed. He's got good hands. He has all the tools it takes to be a very exceptional football player.
Rod Jones, leading rusher with 61 yards. Is that what you expect of him?
No, we think Rod is going to be better. Right now, we're trying to establish a weak side of attack to keep everybody balanced in going into district play. If you don't, then they're going to overshift you, and then at that point in time, you'll have to go weak. So we're trying to make everyone balance up, don't overshift the defenses to maintain, you know, a good balanced attack.
And what about Brian Glasscock? He had a big game, opening game against Irving MacArthur. He set out the second half. What happened there?
Early in the ball game, Brian sprained his wrist, and rather than take a chance, we just played Eric. Eric needed the experience anyway.
Speaking of Eric Mace, he had a good night. He does a lot of things. I asked him in his interview after the ball game, what do you want to do? He said, just put me in, I'll play anywhere. You guys played him all over the field last night. He had a big night.
Eric is a real talented kid. He's a big play person, like we've said earlier, and when he gets the ball, he is going to make something happen. And before the year's over, he is going to be a big threat for us.
Talk about that punt return, you know. I was congratulating him on that, and he was saying that perhaps the coaches weren't real pleased all in all with his punt return for a touchdown.
Oh, I think what he was referring to is we don't like those things to hit the ground. I think if he'd have caught it in the air, it would have probably made 10 yards. He let it hit the ground, scrambled around a little bit, and he came up with a big 6 points. So we weren't very unhappy with that, though.
Boy, you know, going into the ball game, I know Randy Emery and Wayne Johnson were worried about Sherman, but defensively, you guys pretty much shut them down until late in the ball game.
I think a better word is a nervous wreck. They had so many things to prepare for, and our kids really did an exceptional job. Randy did a good job in preparing our kids to meet all the different offensive sets, to be sure to be balanced and not leave anything uncovered, and that is most difficult to do, particularly early in the season.
You know, you had Steve Todd out of the game. People may not recognize this, but Steve sat out. You moved the sophomore in. Pretty good sign of things to come for your defense, I would think.
Oh, I think so. I think the young man you're referring to is George C. I think his eyes are pretty big in that ball game. If you could imagine being a sophomore going to the ball game and knowing you had to do it because there was no one else behind you, we were real pleased with him. He played well. He hustled. He recognized his assignments, and of course, we think Steve Todd will be back this coming week.
Now, you made mention you're going to pull back a little bit before you get into district play. Going into the game last night, did you expect Sherman to really be better than they were? Did they surprise you that they were so extremely young and experienced, or what? How do you look back at that game?
Well, I think the thing, Eddie, that surprised me the most is their kids were very young. And, of course, they did have some big kids that were seniors, but I was surprised at the number of young kids that were in the ball game.
Well, that's enough from us about the ball game. Why don't we change it up a little bit this week and look at the highlights, put a little music under it. When we come back, we'll talk to the players after the game.
Sparkman Hillcrest, with a history dating back to pioneer days, continues to serve Dallas area families. Today, you'll find complete services at one location. The funeral home reflects the dignity people have come to associate with Sparkman Hillcrest, and the meticulously maintained cemetery and historic Hillcrest Mausoleum combine to create a lasting memorial to your loved ones. Sparkman Hillcrest, truly a Dallas tradition.
When you live in the Park Cities, you come to expect the best of everything. You expect the best schools, the best shops, the best cars, the best houses. And you come to expect the best realtors. Call Abio and Adelita, because we're the best that you would expect Park Cities to offer.
Robert, first of all, let's talk about the defense overall. You guys shut them out till late in the ballgame. Pretty good night for you guys.
Yeah, it really was. They were throwing them passes a lot, and we were giving them pretty much heat, and the secondary came up, filled their job very well. Good picture all around.
Talk about what you expected going into the ball game. What kind of look did they give you? Were you prepared? Did you have to adjust, that type of thing?
Well, they ran a shifting offense, and we were very much prepared. Coach Emery did a good job of preparing us for everything they threw at us. There wasn't anything that we hadn't seen or worked on all week long.
Talk about the defense, strength of this team.
Right now, defense is playing good. That's about all I can say.
Characterize it for me. What makes you guys click out there?
We work together. We got good speed. We got good cover. We see the ball good. We just work together good as a team.
How do you come off a big win? Of course, you guys wanted to win tonight because you lost last year to Sherman. How do you keep yourselves up and go against Duncanville next week?
Well, that's a good question. I'm just going to have to wait and see.
Eric, you broke a long punt. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, it was kind of a busted play because I should have caught the ball in the air. And I caught it on the bounce, and the wall was pretty good. Everybody blocked real good, and just went all the way, I guess.
Let's talk about your transition. Coach Bevers working you quite a bit at running back this year. I'd like to know your thoughts on from quarterback to running back.
Well, it's kind of a change. I was nervous tonight getting in the ball game at halfback, but I adjusted, and I don't know. I'm just doing the best I can, I guess.
Would you rather play everywhere? You're returning kicks. Talk about what you feel like you can do to this team. Do you like to play one position or everywhere?
Well, I would rather play quarterback because this is my second year be training on varsity. Spend a lot of time working at it. I don't know. I'm just going to go out and do the best I can. Wherever Coach Bevers needs me, I'll play.
Speaking of that, you played as a sophomore last year. Can you tell a difference in your maturity this year?
Yes, sir. I think I'm more experienced this year. I don't know. I think I've gained a lot of knowledge of other teams and the way our offense works. I don't know. That's about it. A year experience, another year of growth, I guess.
Well, what did you do against Sherman to look so much better than you did the first week?
A lot more intense. We're more prepared. We didn't prepare really for MacArthur that much, and we should have. But we still won, and it's in the past, and I like to think of it that way.
I asked Coach Richardson earlier in the week about an offensive lineman, how you get a guy to play offensive lineman. You guys don't get a lot of credit up there. You have to have it within yourself, or what's the makeup to play offensive line?
Well, in the past it's been that way, but this year they've had a lot of publicity for the line for the first time, and usually the backs get it. And we were real high on ourselves the first week. And we came out and expected to blow people off the line and stuff, and we didn't. And so, you know, it brought us back down to earth. That's why we did this. This thing is not to be, you know, we're not trying to prove we're great or anything, you know, stand out in the crowd. A lot of people think that we did this just to prove, you know, we're real bad, you know, we're great and everything. And we did it because we want to prove, you know, that we want to dedicate ourselves more to football, because we were a little high on ourselves. And so now we've come back down to earth. And that's the reason we beat Sherman tonight.
Richard, this is your big chance for vindication, son. Last year we had you on, a young pup of a player, very nervous. Your mom didn't even recognize you. I know it's got to be a big thrill for you to be back interviewed a second time.
Sure is, Eddie.
Talk about the team against Sherman. You guys looked pretty good. A shutout till late in the ball game. Pretty good ball game for you.
Well, we decided to put it together tonight, and a little help from the good Lord, and we did it.
Now talk about the defense. You guys played pretty well through 2 ball games.
Well, we just had to suck it up because we know that the offense isn't quite prepared, but tonight they look prepared enough, and they're going to improve, and defense is going to improve, and the Scots are going to improve, and we're going to take state.
Up and down the line on the defensive line, not a bad collection of players.
No, we got Worthen, and he's quick, and Ellison's quick, and Robert Turner, hangs in there, he's a tough player, and our linebackers are good. They all got a nose for the ball, and our secondary is excellent. They got hands, and they're quick, and they're great.
You're a captain of this team. Talk about being a captain on the Scott team. It's not just a mere formality to have that title by your name.
No, it's different being a captain. being told you're a captain and playing the part of a captain. And it's tough. You gotta keep everybody in line and work out problems so coaches don't get any problems. And you just gotta take care of the small stuff and, you know, help put it together and show a little leadership.
Final question. A lot of these guys you're surrounded here at Highland Park are going to be doctors, going to be lawyers. Why don't you tell the folks what your ambition is to be when you get out of school?
Well, I really don't know. Might be a doctor, a bone doctor or something.
You said you wanted to be my cameraman.
Oh, yeah. Well, if he over there, you know, ever gets a little old and decides to retire, I'll be glad to be your cameraman, Eddie.
I got a place for you anytime.
All right.
When you live in the Park Cities, you come to expect the best of everything. You expect the best schools, the best shops, the best cars, the best houses. And you come to expect the best realtors. Call Abio and Adelita, because we're the best that you would expect Park Cities to offer.
The Sparkmans, Ben, Bill, and David, continue a tradition dating back to pioneer days. And that tradition is one of dedication and professionalism to Dallas area families. The funeral home, mausoleum, and memorial garden that bear their name continues to reflect the dignity that has been its trademark for almost a century. Sparkman Hillcrest, truly a Dallas tradition.
Last week, we talked with Randy Emery and Wayne Johnson. Now, the offense, of course, needs their fair share. This week, we're going to talk with Don Richardson and Jim Castellaw, a couple of pretty good guys on your staff.
These are two good coaches. This is an area that is very difficult to work. You have to have a kid with a special type personality. He needs to be a young man that doesn't get excited and forget his assignments. He's got to be cool, calm, and collected at all times. He's got to be able to block all major defenses, and this is nearly impossible.
Why don't we take a minute then and visit with Don Richardson and Jim Castellaw.
Well, of course, you have to start from the very beginning every year. You know, it doesn't make any difference how many people you've got coming back. We feel like with this crew, we had the size, so what we need to do is to work on the agility. And in the spring, we spent a great deal of time working with their footwork and the agility aspect of it, trying to get them to move and be in the right place at the right time. And you know, we had some problems Friday night in that respect, but I think it's going to just improve every week that we play.
We're talking now, before the Sherman ball game, you were talking about the Irving MacArthur ball game. Are there times like the Irving MacArthur ball game when you guys feel like stockbrokers, say, right after the 1929 crash? What do you do during periods like that?
Well, you get out there and sometimes you freelance with it. You hope you're doing the right thing at the right time. As far as the ball game is concerned, you get in there and you get a feel from what's going, and you try to use that routine throughout the whole ball game. We felt like going in that we would have some trouble with them because they were so small and so quick, and we did. But also at times we covered them up and made some large gains and had some very good success. But yeah, it's kind of like a stockbroker. You just kind of wheeling and dealing at times and hoping you come up with the right combination.
People may not notice, but during the ball game, you guys have your own little huddle down there when they come off the field. Talk about that.
Well, what we try to do over there is to get them set down and get them calmed down, because they come off, they're hyper. You know, they've missed a block or they've made a mistake and they know it and they want to tell me about it. Well, I'm not so concerned about the mistake they made as to where the guy's lining up. What is he doing to you when you're into the short side of the field? Is he slanting wide? Is he holding leverage? You know, that tells us that we need to run into the short side. And of course, when I get the information from the kids, I tell Frank, and then Frank sets up what kind of game plan he wants to go to at that point. And a lot of times they play a strong side or wide side, and we'll run into the short side, or we'll run weak if they're playing a strong side. So that's what I look for. Where are they playing you? How's he lining up? What is he doing in a certain situation? And the kids are real good at it. They get to a point late in the season, they can tell you where the guy 2 holes over is lining up and how he's playing. They get to be that aware.
Frank said last year that the offensive linemen really have to have a lot of smarts out there, be intelligent. They do, don't they?
They certainly do. You if you don't have some awareness about you, you simply can't play offense. And the thing about an offensive lineman, he needs to be aggressive, but he can't be overly aggressive like a defensive lineman. He has to maintain his concentration and remain somewhat at ease to himself during the course of the ball game. But he can't be a dummy, not in this one, because we only have certain basic plays. You watch us play every night, we're going to run the same basic play. But we may have 3 or 4 ways to block one play. So the offensive lineman has to be able to recognize the defense, give the proper call, and then relay that down to the next man and then make the play work.
Just that simple.
Just that simple.
How in the world do you take a kid? I know y'all watch kids when they're in the 9th grade and sophomores. How do you take a kid and say he is an offensive lineman?
You try to look at the kid and project how he's going to grow. Look at Troy Snelling, for example. Troy is a big old gangly kid, you know, and he's going to be a good football player. Has a lot of good techniques at a young age. You put him in a position and just leave him there and hope he matures into that. We think Troy next year will be a good offensive lineman, but he's real tall. He's about 6'3 plus, weighs about 190 pounds, you know, and you scatter that over a 6'3 frame, he looks kind of gangly, but he's going to be a good athlete, and that's what we look for. Down the line, young, when they start coming up, Trey Smith is a freshman, David Turner is a freshman. They're tall kids, heavy kids. You kind of project them along, and you put them in a particular mode. All right, you want them to be a tackle, you want to line them up at a guard. You kind of put them there and leave them there and let them grow into it. And as they grow, they mature physically, and hopefully by the time they're a junior or senior, they can play.
How do you sell a kid on being an offensive lineman? I mean, I don't want to knock your positions or anything, but an offensive lineman, even defensive linemen get to tackle the guy. How do you sell a kid on playing offensive line?
It's always a challenge, I think, to an offensive lineman to line up somewhere and be able to defeat the guy across from him. It's an internal type of joy you get. Defensively, you get your name put on the loudspeaker and you make a tackle. Offensively, they don't know anything, but it has to come something from within, and the kid has to get a lot of satisfaction from it. And the offensive linemen here, they know we're only going to be as good as the offensive line is. If we can't make holes for people, you know, we're not going to win many ball games. And in the past, we've been very successful in having some offensive lines that could get out there and get the job done. It takes us a while to get things rolling, you know, and maturing out. But it has to be an inner deal. You have to really enjoy it yourself, you know, because you don't get a lot of glory from the people in the stands. They look at King or Bryant and running up down the field, you know. But the offensive lineman, it's something he has in the stands. They look at King or Bryant and running up down the field, you know. But the offensive lineman, it's something he has to really enjoy within himself, because he doesn't get a lot of back padding, so to speak.
Jim, for starters, I understand that you played here. I'd like to know how you ended up back here at Highland Park, and I would think, from the way you act around it, that it's a pretty nice situation for you.
Well, it is. It was really kind of difficult at first because I played for Randy Emery. He was a freshman coach when I was a freshman, and he regularly chewed on me, so it was kind of hard coming back over here because he kind of took up where he left off. And but after a couple of years, we worked into it, and we're in a good situation now. I'm really glad to be back here because I feel a lot of pride for this place, and I'm proud that I came from here, and so I'm really proud to be back.
Was there the same tradition when you were here that I've noticed covering the team the past couple of years?
There was tradition, but there wasn't the intense type of tradition that you have today. Anytime you go to playoffs the last couple of years or last 4 times in the last 6 years, there's going to be more tradition. We had tradition from winning teams, but it was more from the distant past, a 57 group and some groups in the 60s. But when I was here, there wasn't the same kind of tradition, it wasn't the same feeling. I think Frank's responsible for a lot of that.
Let's talk about the offensive line coach. I talked to Don Richardson about this. Coming off a game like Irving MacArthur, what do you feel? You're the guy that's responsible for the running game, the guys up front. What were your feelings on that?
Well, I didn't feel we executed real well. We were making, it was a type of situation where we were making one mistake here, one mistake there, and we weren't all operating well together. My feeling is kind of, you got to play together as far as offensive line goes. You got to play together for, maybe game 2, maybe even 3, before you really get the feel of what it's like with the people you're playing with. And I think that was our problem. We weren't executing real well to begin with, and I think that'll come with time.
You have the potential to be a good ball club, you think?
Oh, definitely have the potential. People like Richards, Hal has improved 100%, as you know, since last year. Hal had prone to make a few mistakes last year, and he's starting to eliminate them and really taking a leadership role. And everybody looks up to the big boy, Richards. So I think we really got a chance to be great. It's just going to take a couple of games for those guys to feel what it's like to start working as a unit instead of 5 different individuals.
Well, since you touched on a couple of guys, Hal and big man Richards, why don't you go ahead and run it down, some of the kids you've got out there in the position, where they came from. I know Odin was there last year and some of that, but tell where they came from.
As far as they came from, Charlie Davis last year, he was a guard last year, and we tried to work him in as much as we could, but he had just a little problem with his strength. And so we had to wait till he's a senior with him, and he's come around, and he's getting better every week. Gene Williams has been in the program for a number of years. He's always had good size. This year, he's really turned on his intensity. He's picked it up. He's got the potential to really be a great one because he's got such great size. But let's see, who else? John Rutledge was a sophomore on the team last year. John, I first coached John when he was in 7th grade, as I did Richards, and so I've known it. We've kind of grown up together a little bit. And John is an intense competitor. He really wants to win bad, and he'll do anything it takes.
I asked Don this question. I want your answer on it. It's the final question. How do you take a guy and say, we want you to be an offensive lineman? That takes a selling job, I would think.
Well, I think a lot of these guys, it really doesn't take a great deal of selling. Offensive linemen are a different breed in themselves. There's something about you have to be able to take pride in seeing somebody else do well, because when it's the back breaking through there, you have to be able, and you've opened the hole, you have to be able to say, hey, I did that. And you have to be able to take pride in saying that, and I think all offensive linemen do that. They derive pleasure from what the other people do, and you have to be a certain breed to do that, and I think that's the kind of people we've got.
Earlier you said you were going to pull back a little bit before district started. Does that mean you're not going to prepare for Duncanville this week?
We won't prepare for them like we will for someone in district. What I'm referring to is emotional preparation as far as getting the kids emotionally involved. We would like for them just to go play and win the ball game by themselves, and a little bit later on down the road, we're going to really get emotionally involved, try to win the district championship. And that's what we're referring to when we talk about as far as preparation is concerned.
I'll tell you where some highlight ought to come this week. You guys are finally coming home to open the season.
Boy, I'll tell you what, we'll be very thankful for that. It's nice to play away, but it's even greater to play at home, and we'll be glad this is our first home district ball, first home game this year, and we'll be excited about being there.
I know what a burden you've got to bear now. You had some guys that had kids on the team, and do you realize last night I saw the Littles and other folks like that that are still coming to the ball game. You got to really perform for these folks now.
Well, this has been a tradition here for a long time that once you get involved in sports at Highland Park, that you continue to support, even though you may not have kids at that present time. And these people have been very supportive, and we're very thankful for that.
2-0 on the year. Duncanville at home next week. We'll be back next week. That is our time for this weekend. We thank you for yours.
The Frank Bevers Show, a weekly look at the activities and game highlights of the Highland Park Scots, with head coach Frank Bevers and Eddie Clinton. Brought to you by Avio Adlita Realtors, Lincoln Property, Sparkman Hillcrest, Sharp Hardware, J.P. Summers Incorporated Construction and Home Building, Murray Savings. Murray Savings was the first in Dallas to introduce an interest-earning checking
Week of the 1982 high school football season.